song that Donald sang, Caledonia. I know that that was one of Philip's favourites, because in his company many times he would have a real good go at that song. I only wish he was here today. I need him, because I need people to support the cause of Scotland's freedom. I can count in my hand the folk whose loyalty to Scotland is 100%. Philip was one of these people. Another person I met years ago was Wendy Wood, who was one of the founders of the Scottish National Party and also founder of the Scottish Patriots. It's one of these other people in that five. There's very, very few people whose loyalty to Scotland is 100%. Philip gets my respect as one of these people. I've never seen a man so determined to get Scotland's freedom. Many's a time he would be here in George Square. I even put up a wee bit of a film today of Philip in George Square playing Flower of Scotland through the big megaphone that we had. How I'll miss him, I'll tell you. Now, the circumstances that led to Philip's death, obviously he was made homeless. I'm going to ask a speaker up now to speak about the plight of the homeless. This man was made homeless, Alistair Cadona, and he went on hunger strike to alert people to the problems of the homeless. So if you're ready, Alistair, you want to come up and give us a wee talk about the situation with the homeless.
If someone takes his life and he's got everything, he's got family, a house, job, money, he's socially popular, then you can maybe stand back and you can say, nothing really to do with us or anybody else. It's something inside the person. There must have been something inside the person, because his life was great, better than mine. Why would someone like that take his own life? But when someone's been imprisoned, when someone's got problems with addiction, when someone is homeless, then the people around that person have to start looking at what they have done to that person, instead of just telling that person, this is all your fault, that you've taken your life. People have rights in Scotland with regard to homelessness. They have statutory rights which Glasgow City Council should be rigorously enforcing, and they should be offering services in accordance with the statutory rights of the people who reside in Scotland, whether they have homes or whether they do not have homes. People who do not have homes have the right to have their problems assessed by the local authority. And should they require a home, should they need a home, then they should be given that home. Philip Malloy was not given that home. And Philip Malloy took his own life. And the first people that I am going to look at with regard to what responsibility do we all have with regard to Philip Malloy taking his own life, are the people in there and the people in the Scottish Government and all the people who have the official statutory responsibility to have housed Philip. But we know from reports of bodies like the Govan Law Centre that the people in there have structured a service and hired people who are carrying out that service, and they are not informing people of their statutory rights when the people come and say, I have no home. We know from the reports of the Govan Law Centre that people are being denied the right to even fill in an application form to be recognised as homeless. When I was homeless, they refused every single time I went to them to allow me even to fill in a measly council application form to be recognised as homeless. We know from the Govan Law Centre that while they're making their decision on whether we're really homeless or not, they should be offering us temporary accommodation, just in case we're not, probably, but they should be offering us temporary accommodation of some kind and making sure that we're not on the street. This isn't happening for individual after individual after individual after individual. And Philip committed suicide in exactly that situation. The statutory duty was not being provided to him exactly at the point when he took his own life. The first people I'm going to look at for responsibility for Philip Malloy's death are the people who are hiring the people who are supposed to be providing that service, and who are supposed to be making their budgets to the benefit of Scottish people, people resident in Scotland, so that they, if they need homes, are being provided with homes. Who's providing the money for housing in Scotland? Are they providing enough money? Are the houses being built? Are the hostels being built? Who's responsible? Is it Philip's father? Is it Philip's mother?
No.
Who was it who didn't love Philip? Who was it who didn't care for Philip? Who was it who didn't have responsibility for Philip? And of course, then there's people, the council know that they should be housing them. They should be giving them a home. Now we know from the Govan Law Centre that particularly people with mental illness, people who've been imprisoned or have committed crimes and been convicted, are not being housed, are not being homed when they should be homed, because the Govan Law Centre has taken up their case and shown that they should be given a home. And one of the main reasons that that isn't happening for a lot of people is that there isn't the accommodation for them. So who's responsible for that? Is it Philip's father? Is it Philip's mother? I went to the council again and again and again. I wasn't allowed to fill in an application form to be recognised as homeless. I told them again and again and again. I presented myself as homeless again and again and again. And they refused to let me fill in the application form and sign the application form and make my application so that I could get a decision. But there was no obligation on them in the law. There was no obligation on them to provide me with an application form, allow me to fill it in, or even get them to fill it in. There was no obligation on them to get me to sign an application form. So they could get away, and they still get away, I believe, because I'm still hearing stories They can get away with just saying, go away, go away. We're not going to let you apply. We're not going to let you fill in this form. We're not going to let you sign this form. What kind of country, what kind of politics is this? That we're not even willing to let people fill in forms. That's what happened to me. That's why I went on hunger strike, because that's how draconian these responsible people are with the lives of the people they're supposed to be serving in a civil service. Is it civil? No. Is it service? No. There's no civility about this. There's no civilization about this. We all know Glasgow well enough, most of us here, I'm sure. And we see mentally ill people on the streets. We see people who are out of prison on the streets with nowhere to go. We see people who are on the edge of suicide. We see people who've got medical conditions on the streets. So I would say to Philip's father and Philip's mother, just you remember this. There were people apart from you who had responsibilities towards your son, and they let your son down massively. Massively. To me, Scotland is its people and its land, and the two go together. And the freedom is something deep inside the land and deep inside the people. And it needs brought out. And we all have to be aware of this. We all have to be aware of what that freedom is and what that freedom means. We might have different solutions, but by God, it is not freedom if we're leaving people lying on the streets. You might as well put them back into prison, because you're killing them. Even if they don't die, you're killing them in some way. I managed to get a statutory commitment from the Scottish Government, I'm pleased to say. And they recognise that people who present themselves as homeless should be allowed to fill in application forms. So we can make change. I didn't do it on my own. There were people who took responsibility for me, and they took actions on my behalf. I just started it. I just took a sleeping bag and sat myself outside the Parliament, and this thing just developed around me. So it can happen, and it just needs one person to start it off even. So take strength from the fact that, I managed to get that changed. There are things that, if they're important to you, you can get changed as well. But we shouldn't have to lose our lives for them. And I wish that Philip was here today for his mother and father, and for himself.
I know that what Alistair didn't say was that he'd been on hunger strike because of this situation. I thought he'd have gave us a few words about that, but never mind. Anyway, the next singer that is coming on is Sean Gerard McCloskey, and he's going to be singing, one of the songs he's going to be singing is a Mark McGinn song called Troubled Waters, and everybody should have a copy of that song if you want to sing along with us.
Thanks for coming out today, everyone. Appreciate it. I didn't know this song last week, but James intimated to me that this is a good song for today to remember Philip by. So I hope to do that justice. It's called Troubled Waters in My Soul. been sailing troubled waters that knew no calm. The wind was wailing o'er troubled waters, and my sorrow knew no bound. Troubled waters, troubled waters, troubled waters in my soul. I've been drinking troubled waters to ease my mind. But in those waters, troubled waters, no solace could I find. Troubled waters, troubled waters, troubled waters in my soul. Storm clouds gather o'er troubled waters, no haven for I was wandering troubled waters, no love could I find. Troubled waters, troubled waters, troubled waters in my soul. Troubled waters, troubled waters, troubled waters in my soul. That's the thing about Scottish history. It's called The Lion Beneath the Stars. Blind Harry was a minstrel fair, when the name of Wallace filled the air. He spoke of many deeds so bold, their reaches now, both young and old. At Stirling Bridge and Bannockburn, the lion roared, the tides they turned. The guardians watched like standing stones as the Bruce was placed upon the throne. And seeing that his work was done, the lion slept but will return. From Inverness to Galloway, from the Isle of Skye to the Ears of Craig, the lion sleeps in Old Glencoe, and when he wakes, you'll hear him roar. It's in the songs that we sing, by steel on steel the metal rings. It's in the stories that we tell, how good men stood and how they fell. It's in the stone of destiny, the rock that sets a nation free. It's in the words of you and me, all Scotia shines for all to see. Pulsing like a heartbeat in each and every one, reaching out across the world, shining like the sun. So hold her in your hand a while, see her sparkle, see her shine, with her love for everyone, The story of a star has just begun. The hammer strikes the anvil now in the ghostly shipyards of our towns. The rusty iron chains they speak, 1,000 stories that they keep. It whispers on the wind that blows from Nova Scotia back to our shores. To our shores.
Oh, wasn't totally up.
From Remembrance to Galloway, from the Isle of Skye to the Isles of Craig, the lion sleeps in old Glencoe, and when he wakes, you'll hear him roar. It's in the songs that we sing, like steel on steel, the metal rings. It's in the stories that we tell, how good men stood and how they fell. It's in the stone of destiny, the rock that sets a nation free. It's in the words of you and me, old Scotia shines for all to see. For all to see. For all to see. For all to see. The next song is about the clearances. I didn't write this one. This was written by a friend of mine. He's sadly no longer with us either. His name is John Vise. He's singer-songwriter from Port Glasgow. This is called Bound for America. He wrote the song. The winds they are howling, the seas running high, and our chieftains don't care if we live or we die. They drove us on ships, we were ever to Hawaii, and we're bound for America. They came to us waving a flag that was white and turned on us like wolves in the night. They didn't care if it was wrong or was right, and we're bound for America. The winds they are howling, the seas running high, and our chieftains don't care if we live or we die. They drove us on ships, we were ever to Hawaii, and we're bound for America. We stood on the dock in the dead of the night. The women they cried and the men shook with fright. The children's eyes glittered like soft candlelight, and we're bound for America. The winds they are howling, the seas running high, and our chieftains don't care if we live or we die. They drove us on ships, we just never to Hawaii, and we're bound for America. One was the heart of our brave human men. They stood there and shivered like sheep in a pen, and we all wondered if we see Scotland again, and we're bound for America. The winds they are howling, the seas running high, and our chieftains don't care if we live or we die. They drove us on ships, we were never to Hawaii, and we're bound for America. The winds they are howling, the seas running high, and our chieftains don't care if we live or we die. They drove us on ships, we were never to Hawaii, and we're bound for America. Bound for America. Bound for America. Thank you very much. Roy Williamson and the Corries. O flower of Scotland, when will we see your lights again? That fought and died for your weep at hill and glen, and stood against them. Proud Edward's army, and sent them homewards to think again. Those days are gone now, and in the past they must remain. But we can still rise now and be a nation again that stood against them. Proud Edward's army, and sent them homewards to think again. O flower of Scotland, when will we see your lights again? That fought and died for your weep at hill and glen, and stood against them. Proud Edward's army, and sent them homewards to think again. And sent them homewards to think again. And sent them homewards to think again.
That was very good, Flower of Scotland. Yeah, once our people stood and they fought like hell for the freedom of this country. What's it come to? This country has fallen to the state of a conquered country. While I'm speaking, electricity's gone over the border. Water's gone over the border. Trillions in oil revenue has been spent in the south of England. Even in the state of Alaska, one of the states of the United States of America, they are rich in oil. Every year, every single citizen, every single one of them gets over $2,000 in their hand from the oil revenue. What do you get?
Trident.
Bugger hell! Why? Because you won't go up off your arse and fight for your rights. This country, Scotland, belongs to you. It's time to stand up and fight for our freedom. Just the way that Philip Malloy, if he was here today, he'd be standing by my side, saying exactly the same thing. When are we going to go en masse and claim what is ours? This country, Scotland, belongs to us, and it's up to us to stand up and get our freedom back. Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Sean Clapton to speak. Thank you.
Was a great Scottish patriot. He was a young man who stood up and campaigned for a free and independent socialist Scotland. But Philip was 28 years of age and he was sanctioned. He was sanctioned and he lost all his benefits. He was made homeless and he drowned in the Clyde. And let me tell you this, who is to blame for that? Westminster, The Westminster Tories are to blame for that. And let me say this, we're going to have a lot more Philip Malloys being drowned or committing suicide or suffering from mental health, because in the coming months and years, because in April 2019, we're going to get the second bedroom tax, which is going to affect 241,000 people in our country. 241,000 tenants are going to get their housing benefit cut. Our young under 35-year-olds are going to have their housing benefit cut by 25% here in Glasgow, 25% in Renfrewshire. We're also going to see sheltered housing closing down for the elderly. We're also going to see supported housing for the disabled closing down, all because the Tories are going to impose a welfare cap, a housing cap, what they call the local housing allowance for one bedroom only. And they're going to impose that cap, and it means massive cuts. And what we're going to see is the decimation of public sector housing here in Scotland. So what do we do about it? What do we do? What would Philip do if he was here today? Philip would be standing alongside us to fight against this cut in housing benefit, this Tory tax, this what we call the bedroom tax too. So on Tuesday of this week, on the 7th of February, a whole lot of us are going to be gathering in Edinburgh. We're going to be at 67 Northumberland Street, outside the Tory party headquarters, and we're demanding that they do away with this second bedroom tax. That's what we're going to demand, and we're going to be there at 1 o'clock outside the Tory party HQ at 67 Northumberland Street on Tuesday. And I'm saying to people here today, we're going to be meeting at 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning at Buchanan Street bus station at the Lover statue to go through to Edinburgh and to demand the end of this Tory tax, so that this bedroom tax too never gets off the ground. Because if it does, we're going to see a lot more young people, a lot more people, our elderly people, homeless on the streets of Glasgow and Edinburgh and Dundee and Aberdeen, and we do not want that. We want to see the end of homelessness. We want to see a Scotland that is independent, socialist, Republican, and cares for our people. Thank you.
Right, now, we're moving on. I'm going to ask Cheryl Scott to come up and give us a wee speech and a few songs.
Thanks, James. You'll have to bear with me today. I've got a bit of cold, so the singing might not be up too much. I knew Phil. I wouldn't say I knew him well, but I knew him. Last time I saw him was in the Yes Bar, and that night I kind of emptied the bar because some things I was saying. The thing that stuck with me though, as Phil said, that no matter what happens, I'd said that the English were going to send tanks in if we'd voted yes, if we'd been allowed to vote yes. He says, well, I'll take them on with my fists, and that just summed up the bravery and the folly of youth, I suppose. He was a wonderful guy. He's sadly missed. I didn't make it last year, unfortunately. I don't remember why. But many Phils are out there in our streets. I was reading just last night, a guy who goes round with a bunch of people around the cities of Scotland and helps the homeless. And in a space of 2 hours last night, he helped 30 people, young girls, young boys. He spoke about one young boy who fell out with his girlfriend. He lived in Ayrshire, where I come from. And he'd moved to Glasgow to live in the streets. And because he had moved away voluntary from his home in Ayrshire. No one would help him. No one in these buildings would help him. No one in Ayrshire would help him. They gave him a cup of soup to drink, and he said he drank it down as if it was his first meal ever. It possibly could be his last meal ever. Why is that in a country of 5 million souls with the resources that somehow manages to keep a union of 60 million in the black, or slightly in the red, as they tried to tell us? Yet we're told not to talk about oil or gas because Scotland can't survive on those things, can they? Absolute rot. Rubbish. I wonder when we're going to get our independence. I stood in this square 2 years ago, 2 and a bit years ago, the night before the referendum. There must have been 20,000 here if there was one. We stood here for 11 hours and there was something in the air. Something special was in there. We knew within 24 hours we'd have voted for our country to be free. I still believe we did vote for our country to be free. We were denied that by many dirty tricks through the media. We had no voice in the media. None. But more than that, some were scared. They ran away from accusing the Electoral Commission of cheating us. I witnessed many things myself in Ayrshire and Kilmarnock, which just made me shake my head. We have reports of ballot boxes being burned in Inverness, have been destroyed in Greenock the day after the referendum. Now, if it was a fair referendum, why was that done? They're supposed to be kept for a year. I know people who reported incidents to the police. The police took a note of those incidents and then told them they could not now talk about it. My biggest problem, though, is that people of Scotland are not angry. They're not angry enough. Only when you get angry enough will you take your freedom. You won't wait for a politician to tell you, okay, this is the time. The time is long past. Scotland's population is 5 million. In 1911 it was just under 5 million. In 2011 it was just over 5 million. It increased by 12% in 100 years. Comparatively, England's population increased by 56% in the same time. Does that matter? Well, it matters a hell of a lot. Because this thing called the Barnett formula gives us pocket money from our own money. Its biggest calculator is a differential in the populations. England's population is now a state where the deaths do not outnumber the births. Scotland's population is stagnant. How many fowls will die this winter? How many people in Scotland live in poverty in a country that has the resources, that has the will to feed every single person? We have a situation during the moment where fascism has taken over the world. My parents lived through the first wave of fascism in the 20th century. I never ever thought I would see it again in my life. It's a scary time. We have nuclear weapons just up the road to protect us. How can they protect us? They cannot be fired. And if we are attacked, we will not be here to know whether they worked. We will be dead within seconds of any strike. And if we use them first, then they're no longer a defensive weapon, they're a first strike weapon. But it's costing 200 billion at the last count. That's going to be $1 trillion by the end of the time. Yet people are homeless. People are starving in our country. And yet, all I see is people turning to politicians. I don't know about you, all my life I was told never trust a politician. I stood for Westminster. I was not selected. I stood for the Holyrood last year as well, but I'm not a politician. And the first thing I ever told anybody when I stood up at Hustings was, do not trust me. I don't mean that, but what I'm saying is when I get elected, my head will be turned. We have 56, we have 59 actually, MPs that went to Westminster nearly 2 years ago on a mandate to bring back our independence, nothing else. My local MP, who beat me in this election, came back for his first report. He didn't report about how many times he had mentioned independence in Westminster, the den of Westminster. I've joined the beer club, I've joined the cheese club, and I'm thinking of joining the wine club. This is someone who was sent on our votes, on my vote, to go and win our independence, and he was joining the club. It sickens me. He was sent for a reason.